You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 276 of Teach Better Talk podcast. We have, how do I phrase this? We've been up to some shenanigans. My name is Ray Hewart. I am with the almighty Jeff Gargis, and let's just put it this way, guys. We have a lot of extra B-roll that Chris is going to take and make us look terrible someday when he releases it to the public. That's where we're at.
I feel like telling our Teach Better Talk listeners that we are up to shenanigans is like, they're like, yeah, sure, that's why I listen. Like, what is...
No, but I feel like today was worse. Like, Chris, you can put like a yep or a no with some sort of sound right here, but it was worse today.
You can call whatever you want. I'm pretty sure what I did just before this was absolute gold. So, like, it was fantastic. Comedic genius, I think. Like, I had you rolling. I don't know if it was out of anger, frustration, laughter, or pity, but you know,
one of those, yeah. One of those.
So we're currently recording. That's what we're doing. We
are,
now.
In case you forgot.
So here's the best part about this: is that these shenanigans we're talking about, like, are going to be happening a lot more because, like, we're going to be live a lot, which means they're not just for Chris anymore. Everyone gets to see them more and more and more.
That's true.
Because if you don't know, if you're listening and you're not aware, daily drop-ins are back. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's us dropping in daily, live. 5 days a week. I guess there's 2 days that we're not going to do it daily, so it's not.
Well, actually, I figured it out because we're live for our Twitter chat recap and brain break, and then every morning for daily drop-ins. So we're live 7 at least. That's without anything extra. We're live at least 7 times a week. Yep. Yes.
Wow. And so daily drop-ins going to be every day, every weekday, right? Monday through Friday at...
Monday through Friday.
What time is that? 7 a.m. Eastern time?
7 a.m. Eastern. Yep.
Early. That gets you started, get your day going. I mean, and we've got all kinds of guests lined up and different themes and stuff we're talking. Like, it's going to be a lot of fun. And every Monday, it's you and me.
Every Monday, it's you and me, and every week has a new theme. We have guests popping in who have a lot to share, not only about the themes that we will continue to celebrate, but also in the comments, answering your questions, sharing their stories. I'm so excited.
Are we allowed to? I don't know what's out and what's not out. I should, but I don't right now. Are we allowed to show the set, like, what's every Friday? Is that public knowledge yet?
I mean,
can we right now to our podcast?
I don't know. Why not?
Let's do it.
Sure. Every Friday, starting at the end of August, once we get a few weeks in, is going to be with Brad Hughes.
Brad Hughes from the Good News Brad News podcast, which is part of the Teach Better Podcast Network. If you don't know Brad, like...
He's awesome.
Yeah, that's good. Fridays are going to be just a blast. Like, I can't wait till he starts doing voices and stuff, because people don't realize I can do some awesome voice impressions and stuff. So that's starting. This podcast comes out on the 2nd, which means today is the day the daily drop-ins are officially back.
Yeah, and here's how this works, guys. So the daily drop-in streams in the morning. We said 7 a.m. Eastern. You can catch it on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And obviously, anytime we record, anytime we're live, everything is saved on that platform. So if you want to head to the Teach Better Team YouTube channel or the Facebook page, like, you can see all those lives there. But what we are also doing is we are taking those videos, we are stripping the audio, and we are making it into a podcast. So you already listened to the Teach Better Talk podcast. We'd love to have you go subscribe to the Daily Drop-In podcast, which will be our live podcast equivalent, so that you can hear all the shenanigans that happen, not only the current day that you hopefully are catching up on, but also the whole shenanigan the whole week. It's going to be so fun.
And I want to highlight what you said there is that it's a new podcast. It's not going to be on. I know in the past we've done some bonus episodes here on Teach Better Talk on this stream with those live, but it's going to be its own podcast, Daily Drop-ins with Teach Better Team, because it's going to be a lot. Like 5 episodes a week. You're going to have a lot to listen to. So super excited about that.
Yeah, we're really excited. And like I said, I mean, the guests that are coming on are from all over in our network. We'd love to not only amplify those stories of people that you already know, maybe they've already been on Teach Better Talk podcast, or they're members of the team or anything in between, but also bring in some new faces, some new voices, and continue to celebrate. So if you're somebody who enjoys connecting with other educators. If you love a safe space to brainstorm, if you're looking to continue to be inspired and supported and connected, come hang out with us over on the Daily Drop-In podcast. We're so excited.
I love that. And that's a great segue actually into talking about this episode, because our guest Marie talked a lot about a couple of different pages about being connected and connecting with other educators and growing your PLN and the power that that has had for her. And now she's a Teach Better ambassador, which is awesome. But Marie McCumber is she's an elementary school teacher at a school for the blind here in Ohio. She's had a lot of really, I think, unique experience in education and what she's done, and shares a whole lot of really cool. So I'm going to just say, like, Marie was telling us she was struggling to find the failure story, and then she just blew me away with her failure story. So this is an awesome episode. We're so happy that she could be on it. We're so just honored to have her as one of our ambassadors in our world. So I think you're going to love this episode. Ray, anything to add, or should we just dive into it?
Let's dive into it.
All right, episode 276 with Marie McCumber. What's up, Teach Better family? It's Jeff, and I want to make you aware of another amazing webinar series kicking off on August 2nd. This is 2 weeks, 4 sessions with the amazing Ray Hewer. During these 4 sessions, you're going to learn how to build an intro mastery grid for use with the Grid Method Mastery Learning System. You're going to get example grids, templates, lifetime access to replays of all the sessions, live coaching. This is something you do not want to miss. This is going to be an incredible webinar series. You're going to take so much away from this that you can put into action right away, getting ready for the next school year. So head over to teachbetter.com/summer intro grid and get registered today. All right, we are here. We are chatting with Marie McCumber. And Marie, it's so awesome to have you on the podcast. Super excited that you were able to carve out some time and hang out with Ray and I for a little bit. We're excited to just kind of dive in and learn more about you and your story and what you got going on. Before we get too far into that stuff, how are you feeling right now?
Hot. I feel hot. It's July. It's July in Ohio, and we've reached that like hot and like oppressive mugginess. Yeah. And I tried to walk today, and I was like, "This was a mistake."
I wish you hadn't elaborated on that, because, like, how are you feeling today? And everyone was sitting in their car, like, "Yeah, can't wait to hear how she's feeling." And you're just like, "I'm feeling really hot."
I should have actually. Yeah, that would have been a better response.
You have been having some AC issues, so we are all sending some cool breeze your way, just so you know.
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, and I know that we're going to have so many like fun questions, so much laughter. I know that we've already been like joking before we press record, but before we get into all that, I do want to kind of introduce you a little bit more to our audience, kind of answering that age-old question of like, hey, what do you do, right? You have a really cool background, so I'm really excited to dive into all that, but just give me the bio. Like, what do you do in education?
So I'm an elementary teacher at the Ohio State School for the Blind. I currently teach 5th grade. I can teach anywhere within the elementary school department, depending on the need. I started as a 4th grade teacher. I moved up with my class to 5th grade, and I will be 5th grade again. I do so many cool and awesome things all day long in my job. I read and I play, and we have great conversations. We explore and get messy and keep trying. And, I can give you the technical stuff. I teach Braille, and we do technology, and I work with helping students access their world and access their academics. And I would fight anybody to say that I have the best job in the world. Like, I absolutely do.
Well, I love that. You're ready to fight people.
I would fight people. I would.
She's ready. Don't even challenge her. She's got her family. She's coming for you. So let's talk about this best job in the world, because that's a unique role. Not many. There's only not many people teach at a school for the blind and work in just a different environment.
Well, can I just preface, Jeff? You have the best job in the world. Are you saying that you don't have the best job in the world?
Listen, I know working with you every day is the best job in the world. I just don't want to fight Marie, because I don't think I'll win. So we're not going to go there. So Marie, did you teach anywhere else before? Have you always been at this school, at the School for Blind? Have you been in others, or?
Yeah, I started as a multiple disabilities teacher. I've taught at 2 public schools and 1 private school in my career before starting at the School for the Blind. I'm actually going into my 13th year of teaching. in the fall. I started at a public school. I went to a private school, went back to a public school before getting a job at the School for the Blind, which is also a public school. It's just a different public school.
So for someone, for teachers that have never worked with students who are blind, what's the biggest, and this interests me. I have, a lot of people don't know that I have a very rare genetic disease that I was born with when I was in my left eye. I'm not blind, but in my left eye, I'm about 86% blind. So I've studied a lot and looked in because early on in my life, they thought for sure I was going to eventually become blind. So it was something so this just really just interests me when I realized what you taught. If I were to ask you, hey, what's the biggest difference working with students that are blind, outside of, obviously the fact that they have that, that challenge in their life that they have overcome? For you as a teacher, what's the biggest difference? Or is it, no, it's the same thing. We're just teaching slightly different, either using slightly different tools and slightly different methods, or is it a very big difference? Or is it really just, is my question making sense? I feel like I'm not sure if I'm asking the right way.
Yeah, you're making sense. And it
doesn't happen often, by the way. You're making sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I would say, to answer that question, it's actually very hard because I came from multiple disabilities, taught students who had severe mobility problems, were nonverbal, things like that. So I was a very specialized teacher in a public school. And then I go to the School for the Blind, and now I am a 5th grade teacher. I could say I'm a content teacher now instead of an intervention teacher, although I do intervention as well. I'm a content teacher, and really my classroom, yes, I have some SLD and I can have some intellectual disabilities, and they can have other things, but really in my classroom, they're just visually impaired. So in a lot of ways, if you take the visual impairment out of it, they're the same kids that you were teaching in 5th grade in, hometown USA, anywhere. However, you can't say that fully because of how much information we take in visually. We take in most of our information visually. 90% of the information we take in is visually. So if you think about that, if you think about how much you take in and then you put a deficit on that, that's a huge deficit that you put on these kids, especially our kids who either are born totally blind or their vision is lost totally at a very young age. Our low vision kids, they still have a hard time, but they're still getting some of that visual input.
Sure, yeah.
Our totally blind kids, especially if they're from birth, you think about they are delayed in their development. They're delayed in their access of literacy. They are delayed cognitively because they're missing information that would have come in visually from before. So the answer to that question is a lot more complex than just saying, yeah, they're the same, or no, they're different for these 3 reasons. It's a very individualistic thing.
And I'm glad that that's the way that you answered that, because I was hoping that's what it is. The fact that there's sort of 2 parts of one, it's super complex and individualized, but also they're still kids, right?
Right.
So I love that you kind of started there and then dove in a little bit deeper. I really appreciate that. And just appreciate the work you do. It's important. Let's move we already know, you told us beforehand, this is the question you were a little worried about and struggling with. So I'm going to go right to it. We're going to get into it. And that's my favorite question, which is when we talk about failure and a story of a failure or a challenge, something you had to overcome. So are you there, or is this going to be the fail story? Did you think of one, or is this the one we're going to tell later on at some other podcast?
Well, what's funny? I was going to be like, one time I was on a podcast for the Teach Better team.
I love it. You can't use that, though. I'm going to make you do something different. Like, share a story with us about time you've had a failure and you've had to overcome that. Kind of take us there with you. What happened? How did you overcome that? And then what did you pull away from that experience?
That's a hard question because, like I said before we got started, my mind got really stuck on one thing. However, there was one student I had, and I was a very early year teacher. I was a very I'm never sure what to call an early year teacher, because sometimes you get those teachers, those first year teachers that come out the gate and they're really good. And at least from outside looking in, we're all going, wow, that person is really good. Even though they might be like in their classroom being like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I think I know I learned a ton in my first year teaching, by doing a lot wrong. And, you know, one of my students, I had a lot of, compliance issues with. And now that is something I have evolved from, you know, coming out of a multiple disabilities, severe behavior training. You know, there's a heavy emphasis on kind of a compliance-based classroom, right? Setting up structure, expecting certain things. And there was a student who I had issues with. He constantly gave me pushback. Constantly. He was this adorable, tiny kindergarten student who would get up on tables and try to fly, you know, jump off and try to fly. So, you know, the harder he pushed back, the harder I tried to get that compliance out of him. And there was one day what he did was, to get out of doing a job, to get out of doing an activity, I had these shelves, and it was this rolling cart with these super thin shelves. They couldn't have been more than 6 inches wide. And he got into the bottom shelf of that, like laid totally flat, and was just looking out at me. And I was dumbfounded because I didn't know what to do.
I bet.
Like, I'm like, do I pull you out? Do I leave you there? Like, and, you know, the way he was looking at me, though, it was like, for that moment, I finally kind of saw him. And I just kind of looked at him and I'm like, do you need a hug? And he was like, yeah, I could use a hug. And he climbed out. And we actually spent the rest of our time working together. I sat on the floor, and I found this picture the other day of somebody snapped a picture of us doing it, one of my assistants. And he's sitting, like, his back is on my chest, and he's like kind of using me as a chair almost. And he's sitting there doing the thing I wanted him to do. And what happened was he was craving contact. He was craving connection, is what it was. And it really started to change my mind a lot about my classroom and my classroom practices, and started evolving a less stringent, I'm the keeper of the classroom, you know, I'm going to change your behavior by doing X, Y, and Z, to we're going to make a connection. And maybe we don't get done with this thing today, but if you feel better leaving than when you did coming in, then we've accomplished something, at least.
Wow. That is, for someone who was struggling to find a story. Wow. That is powerful. I love that you struggled with that, and then that's what we got out of that. That's a powerful. You know, I love when you said, like, in that moment you saw him. I was just nodding my head over, like, oh, that's, man. I feel everyone listening just felt that, because they're feeling the time that they finally saw that kid, mm-hmm. right? Because they're all picturing their student that they had that one year in that one class that was like that.
Especially our behavior kids, you know. Yes, especially, I have a special love for our labeled behaviorally mm-hmm. challenged kids. And it's really grown from a strong evolution in my teaching, honestly. I went in saying, this was before I had kids, when I was a teacher and before I had kids, I went in saying, I want to treat your kids like I would treat my own kids, my own child. But I don't think I really practiced what I preached at right out the gate, if that makes sense. It really took time for me to start actually believing the words that I was saying and to truly start practicing them. I believed in inclusion. I believed in whole child practices, but I was really leaning hard on, well, this is what I was taught to do in my classes in college. So those people know more than me. So I need to do that. And I was having a discussion with Elijah Carbajal just a couple weeks ago, talking about, some of my best moments in teaching was standing behind what I kind of knew in my gut rather than what everybody else was telling me was the best thing to do. Listening to the people in the communities that I serve and, thinking about me as a parent, like, what would I think about this? How would I feel about this? And going from there.
I love the story you picked for your failure story, because I think every educator kind of has that moment where they've finally made progress in a student that they've been struggling with. And whether it's the smallest moment of progress or a huge success like yours, I just feel like your story just had such a wonderful ending. Those moments kind of lean into why we do what we do, right? Why we teach, why we dedicate so much time to this incredible craft, why we really believe there is more out there, and that we can do good work. And I love that. I think it was such a powerful story. And I want to kind of twist that into question about excitement, because as you look at all the work you've done, and I have such a personal soft spot for educators that specifically work with students that have hurdles in front of them, and the educators that truly show them that they can overcome those hurdles. I am such a fan of the work that you do. But with everything that you're currently doing, not only with students, but also in education as a whole, supporting other teachers, what's really keeping you excited right now about what you're doing?
I will tell you, the community, and I feel like this is kind of a self-indulgent answer, but the community I have found in Teach Better has made me, not only has it made me a better teacher, it's made me a more excited teacher about the career, about the field, about the people that are doing it. And I am excited that my PLN has grown so much. I can watch so many amazing teachers do so many amazing things. And then I can go, oh, I want to try that. I want to try that. I want to try that. I made a connection with Noah Daniels, who does this amazing work with analyzing photography in her classroom. Well, she does contractual and consulting now, but when she did it, and I connected with her, I was like, I want to do this, but I'm not sure how to adapt it for my kids. And I started pinging ideas off of her. And just that, I heard about her on another podcast. I started following her on Twitter. I saw what she was doing and saw it was so cool. I messaged her and she messaged me back. And she was super excited that I wanted to take what she was doing and change it to serve a more population, a greater population of students. And I think that's so exciting right now, is the network and connections we can make and the ideas that we can glean and bounce off of each other right now. I have so many, I get really excited and I'm like, I'm going to do all the things. So I really have to be one thing at a time. Let's do one thing at a time.
So I think a lot of us get that way.
Oh man, I have this huge list of stuff. I'm like, okay, so we're going to do this one now. And I am going to wait because, otherwise it'd be a hot mess express. But I think it's so cool, the globalness of the connections we can make now, and how we can network to bring great things in our classroom that we didn't even know were out there from before. And I get super geeked out. My fiance, he can tell, he's like, you're doing teacher stuff again, aren't you? And he's a teacher. Like, so I'm like, yes, because it's so fun and exciting. Like I'm super revved up about like the coming fall school year and what it's going to bring.
Oh my gosh. You're like radiating excitement. I love listening to this, and I love your focus on global connections, because truly that has changed my life in terms of my view of education, the problem solving I'm able to do for students. Like, holy cow, I couldn't agree more. And I guess, I don't know if you want to tie this into your piece of advice, or maybe you want to cheat and provide two. I won't tell Jeff, he'll be fine. But when it comes to a piece of advice that you want to leave teachers, can you either tie it in or give me two separate ones? I'd love to have your piece of advice, but I'd also love to have maybe a piece of advice around how you started growing your network. Because sometimes educators are like, oh, go get on social media. So then people make a profile and then they're like, okay, but how do I actually connect? Like, what's the actual steps?
So I was very active professionally. Actually, I'm going to stop and I'm going to take 3 steps back from that thought. I started on Twitter, 10 years ago, really long time ago. And I only used it for news. It's how I got my news, because I couldn't stand watching or listening to the news. I used it for news. And then just a couple years ago, I started following more education-based news. Is basically how it worked out. I wanted to know what was going on in the world of education, and specifically education for students with disabilities. And then I started following a teacher here and there. And then I realized these teachers, they participate in these chats, and there's all these chats you can participate in. And so I did one night. I had never done one before, and I did one, and it was such a great experience. And looking at other people's responses, I started following more people. And as I followed people started following me back a little bit. But then I started interacting with people, which is really outside of my comfort zone. I know this is not going to sound truthful. It is hard for me to put myself out there. It actually is. But I would be like, I really want to know more about what that person was saying. And so I would reach out to them and they would answer me back. That's the most amazing thing about like teacher professional networks that I found, is that in social media, Twitter, Voxer, Instagram, Snapchat, wherever you want to go, teachers want to help teachers. Like, they don't want to keep all their good ideas to themselves and not share with you and, like sit on their treasure like it's theirs. No, if you have a question, they want to help because it's ingrained in us to help. It is part of our nature to want to help others, especially if there's a question about something. And really, that was it. It really started small and just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And when I became a Teach Better ambassador, it exploded. And I was like, holy people, like there's suddenly so many people in my life, and I love them all because they are all the same way. Like, they're excited about teaching and they want to help. And I think that's really what it has to be. You first have to take a step. I'm going to do this platform, which is what worked for me. I can't do 14 platforms at once. You can find me on Instagram. I'm terrible. I never post anything on it. I'll go on and look at people's pictures. I'm terrible. But started on one platform and just slowly grew it by seeing how it worked and seeing what other people were putting out there, and then putting myself out there and reaching out to other people.
I think that was a huge piece of advice. I mean, that has to be what people start with.
Mm-hmm.
So the advice I'm pulling out there is to get connected, but just start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think a big piece I want people to listen to is that you were utilizing it at a certain level when you were just like jumping on, following people, listening, watching. Mm-hmm. But then when you started actually engaging and asking questions and asking follow-up and putting yourself out there a little bit more is really when the value really started coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a big piece. But you can start with the lurking, right? We always call it like lurking, and when we talk about like Teach Better chat, like you can lurk a little bit, you can do that.
Right.
But when you start to engage, you will find exactly what you said, which is other teachers want to help, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's awesome. I love that story. That's a great piece of advice with wrapped into a really great story there. All right, well, let's keep this going because you're doing amazing right now. I'm loving this.
Thank you.
Let's get into the 6 questions. I'm going to throw these at you. Your goals, answer each one in 15 seconds or less. You ready?
Sure.
What is
I feel
very... you feel what?
I got really stressed out when you said that. Like...
That was my goal. I want to get you really stressed out, very, very anxious, very tense right now. Okay.
Yes. Okay. I'm good.
Are you tense?
Yes.
Are you anxious?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. That's exactly where I want you. All right.
Yes.
What is one ed tech tool you cannot live without?
Bookshare. Teachers, find Bookshare. Over 1 million accessible titles available for anyone with a print disability for free. That's blindness, that's dyslexia, that's physical disabilities.
Love it. What's give us a good book you're reading right now. You can give us up to 3.
Okay, so I'm reading Going Gradeless by Elise Burns and David Frangiosa. I hope I said his name right.
I think you did.
I just finished Gutter Child by J.L. Richardson, which was amazing. And I'm just starting The Lost Vintage by Ann Ma.
Who do we need to follow on Twitter or Instagram today? You can give us up to 3 here as well.
Judith Painter, at jpaintergeog. She is a big National Geographic person. Noah Daniel, at I am no Daniel. And Blind New World, at Blind New World.
Give us a good YouTube channel, website, or podcast for educators to check out.
My favorite educator podcast is the Staff Room Podcast with Shay and Pav.
I'm going to ignore the fact that you said that they're your favorite.
I'm sorry.
Just celebrate Shay and Pav for a minute.
To be fair, guys. To be fair,
your favorite too?
My favorite. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
I think everyone should take 5 to 10 minutes every day and disconnect. Get outside and just be. Listen to what is around you, breathe in deeply, and just be within yourself.
And finally, the best piece of advice you've ever received.
Academics can take a backseat to teach vital skills that students need to access those academics. That's behavioral, organizational, technology, whatever they need to access their academics. You can teach those first.
Wow. Ray, I think she nailed it.
I mean, that's trophy worthy without a doubt. It just is.
Yes.
You have killed it. I know you said you were, I don't know, nervous or something. So silly. You were rocking this. And I know you had a crazy day. And I'm so glad that you're able to spend your evening recording with us. Would you mind sharing again how people can stay connected to you? I love that you have such a dedication to connecting and supporting other educators. I'd love to make sure that our listeners can stay connected.
Yes. And I absolutely mean it. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk with people and make connections. You can find me on Twitter at Hannahnia, HANNAHNIA. I do have a Facebook page. It's filled with kids, dogs, and food. So if you're interested in that part of my life, I am Marie.McCumber on Facebook. Like I said, I'm on Instagram at Hannahnia again. I don't post there, but I like to look at your pictures. So go ahead. And Voxer. I am on Voxer at Hannahnia as well.
I am seeing in my notes here a book.
I do. I have a book coming out.
Take a minute or two here. Tell us about that real quick.
I have a picture book that was published before, but it's being republished by EduMatch. It's being released August 5th. It's called My Name Is Not Jamie. It is based on the true story of a little boy that I worked with when I taught in a preschool for children with disabilities. on an Air Force base in Germany. His dad was deployed, and it's the story about how Jamie, his name was changed, how Jamie changed when his dad was deployed.
Interesting. Awesome. All right. Over at the Edgy Match.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You can find all the links and all the resources, everything we mentioned in this episode over at teachbetter.com in the show notes, as well as the really important links for connecting with Marie and keeping the conversation going. So be sure to head over to teachbetter.com for all of that. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. And if you can give us a rating and review, we'd really appreciate that as well. Let's keep taking this one step further. Just think of 3 of your colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and connect with these amazing educators, and just share this podcast with them. Marie, this was awesome. Such a great episode. I'm so happy that we got you on here and got to share. And I hope that people will take the time to connect with you so they can continue to learn and grow with you. And I just really appreciate you taking some time to hang out with Ray and I. Thank you.
Oh, man, I am so thankful that I got to hang out with you two and talk to you two tonight. I was very excited all day for this.
Awesome. And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.